Welcome, everybody, to the Cry of the Watchman, brought to you by courtesy of the House of Truth Christian Ministries. We have some breaking news coming from the World Health Organization and also from Congress, from the United States Senate. So I would like you guys to pray for our nation, because our nation is going derail as it is going right now. Praise to the Lord. All glory, all honor goes to Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, our Savior. Well, here are some urgent news coming up from the World Health Organization. I was able to print the material just in case the algorithms and the powers that be say that this is disinformation or misinformation. It comes from their sources. We have an article that came from the World Health Organization. Is actually from March 20th of this year, 20 March 2024, and the title is Call for Urgent Agreement on International Deal to Prepare for and Prevent Future Pandemics. And I quote, call from 100 plus pantheon of global leaders for urgent agreements on governments to reach ambitious and equitable international deal to prepare for and prevent future pandemics. This article is quite short. Let me keep reading. A high-powered intervention by 23 former national prime ministers, a former UN General Secretary, and 3 Nobel laureates is being made today to press for an urgent agreement from international negotiators on a pandemic accord under the Constitution of the World Health Organization to bolster the world's collective preparedness and response to future pandemics. Here on the third paragraph says, a pandemic accord is critical to safeguard our collective future. Only a strong global pact, the word pact is the one I'm highlighting now, on pandemics can protect future generations from a repeat of the COVID-19 crisis, which led to millions of deaths and caused widespread social and economic devastation, owing not least to insufficient international collaboration, the leaders write in their joint letter. In the throes of the COVID-19 disaster, which officially claimed 7 million lives and wiped 2 trillion from the world economy, intergovernmental negotiations to reach international agreement on future pandemic non-proliferation were begun in December 2021, basically once the pandemic broke in, between 194 of the world's 196 nations. Nations set themselves the deadline of May 2024, by which they should reach agreement on what would be the world's first ever pandemic accord. You hear that? And it says the 9th round of pandemic accord negotiations are underway this week and next. So this month they should be done with the preparing of the international pandemic accord. Signatories of today's open letter hope their combined influence, willing courage, all 194 nations to maintain the courage of their COVID years conviction and make their own collective ambition of an international pandemic protocol a reality by the intended May deadline to enable ratification by a World Health Assembly at its May 2024 annual General Assembly. Okay. Oh, check this out. One of the last paragraphs says, as countries enter what should be the final stages of the negotiations, governments must work to refute and debunk false claims about the accord. You will see there will be some censorship from those who don't agree with the accord. At the same time, negotiators must ensure that the agreement lives up to its promise to prevent and mitigate pandemic-related risks. These require, for example, provisions aimed at ensuring that when other pandemic threats arise, all relevant responses, from reporting the identification of risky pathogens to delivering tools like tests and vaccine on an equitable basis, are implemented quickly and effectively. As the COVID-19 pandemic showed, collaboration between the public and private sectors focused on advancing the public good is also essential. All right. So this is from the World Health Organization. They've been on the work since 2021 to create a world pandemic pact. What is another word for pact? It's covenant. One world covenant, and they're using the future threats and the experience with the COVID-19 to create a multinational, 194 out of 196 countries to sign the World Health Pact. Okay, so think about it. Have you ever seen a pandemic where the healthy people are the ones being isolated? This is the first time in our history that the healthy people have been quarantined, and this has never been seen before. Anyway, we go to the next. This is a letter dated from this month, May 1st, 2024, by the United States Senate, by the Senate, sent to Joseph R. Biden, the President of the United States, in Washington, D.C. And the first two paragraphs say, and I quote, "Dear Mr. President, next month, during the 77th World Health Assembly, your administration is expected to commit the United States to two international agreements that will strengthen the World Health Organization's, or the WHO, authority to declare public health emergencies of international concern and expand the WHO's authority over member states during such emergencies. This is unacceptable. The World Health Organization's failure during the COVID-19 pandemic was as total as it was predictable and did lasting harm to our country. The United States cannot afford to ignore this latest WHO inability to perform its most basic function and must insist on comprehensive WHO reforms before even considering amendments to the International Health Regulations, or IHR for short, or any new pandemic-related treaty that will increase WHO authority. We are deeply concerned that your administration continues to support these initiatives and strongly urge to change course." The fourth paragraph of this letter from the Senate to the President says, the WHO's, or World Health Organization, most recent publicly available draft of this new pandemic response treaty is dead on arrival. Instead of addressing the WHO's well-documented shortcomings, the treaty focuses on mandated resource and technology transfers, shredding intellectual property rights, infringing free speech, and supercharging the WHO. That means giving too much power to the World Health Organization. Moving forward with the new pandemic preparedness and response treaty ignores the fact that we are still unsure of COVID-19's origins because Beijing and China continues to block a legitimate independent investigation. We strongly urge you not to join any pandemic-related treaty, convention, or agreement being considered at the 77th WHA. End of quote. And it's signed by about 45 senators from the Senate, of course, and they're telling the president, do not enter into an agreement with the World Health Organization until the origins of the COVID-19 are fully documented. Shortcomings of the World Health Organization in managing the pandemic in the way it did during the pandemic times should be improved. And any changes on the who should have been done uh, weeks before uh, it is trying to be ratified. Okay, and the Senate is asking that the World Health Organization does reforms that address the persistent failures without expanding its authority. Okay, in other words, if I don't know if you have ever known that the president of the United States during the pandemic times called for international uh, agreement of many powerful countries, especially in the Western Bloc, to surrender their national sovereignty to the World Health Organization and its Secretary General during pandemic times. When you surrender your sovereignty power, any agency that is as global and outreaching as the World Health Organization will give them extreme power, not just civil and military and logistics and transportation, but also access to a whole plethora of resources that in normal times the WHO will never touch. If in the case of this pact, if I take this right, if this pact is ratified by the 194 out of 196 nations, they make a covenant, because a pact is a covenant between these nations to the WHO, to the World Health Organization. If a pandemic is declared by the WHO, all these nation states must surrender their powers of as nations, their sovereignty powers. That means that who has access to your military, has access to your food, has access to your supplies, to your medicines, to your transportation, air, land, and sea, your civil organizations and your military organizations as well, in a quote unquote effort to combat the new pandemic that will arise. That will make the WHO the strongest and most powerful organization in the world under the management of one man, the Secretary General. In this case will be Antonio Gutierrez. But whomever will be his successor will give him far too much power to mandate the nations to put limits to activities, to put limits to civil liberties, to speech, and to other things that we know very well what that happened during the pandemic. So we must be pay close attention, because if this global pandemic pact or covenant, with almost all the nations in the world, with the United States spearheading this organization, and actually a few members of the Senate is opposing, for it looks like the United States is going to be all in. After a while, when the pandemic started, I heard from President Biden's mouth himself in a press conference that a new world order is out there and we should be the first to take the initiative. Are we seeing the stage of a new world order by the giving of our national powers and resources to the World Health Organization? Are the other nations following suit? And the only two nations that oppose to that are obviously China and Russia. So what is going to happen from here? This is important. I got this from the Senate itself and from the World Health Organization, pure documents. So this is not misinformation. This is coming from the horse's mouth. Now, I put this some time ago. This is coming from the Federal Register, volume 87, number 49, from March 14, 2022. This is from the President of the United States. This is Executive Order 14067 of March 9, 2022. And the title is Ensuring Responsible Development of Digital Assets. Here says on section 1, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered as follows. Section 1, policy. Advances in digital and distributed ledger technology for financial services have led to dramatic growth in markets for digital assets, with profound implications for the protection of consumers, investors, and businesses, including data privacy and security, financial stability and systemic risk, crime, national security, the ability to exercise human rights, financial inclusion and equity, and energy demand and climate change. In November 2021, non-state issued digital assets reached a combined market capitalization of $3 trillion, up from approximately $14 billion in early November 2016. Monetary authorities globally are also exploring and in some cases introducing central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs in short. All right. Section 2, objectives. The principal policy objectives of the United States with respect to digital assets are as follows. They say is to protect consumers, investors, and businesses in the United States. B, we must protect the United States and global financial stability and mitigate systemic risk. C, we must mitigate the illicit finance and national security risks posed by misuse of digital assets. D, we must reinforce United States leadership in the global financial system and in technological and economic competitiveness, including through the responsible development of payment innovations on digital assets. That's the part I'm going to tell you in a moment. E, we must promote access to safe and affordable financial services. F, we must support technological advances to promote responsible development of use of digital assets. Section 3, coordination. The Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs, or AFNSA, and the Assistant to the President of Economic Policy, APEP, shall coordinate through the interagency processes described in National Security Memorandum 2 of February 4, 2021, renewing the National Security Council system. Okay. Section 4, policy and actions related to the United States central bank digital currencies. This has been in effect, people. The policy of my administration of the United States CBDC is as follows. I, sovereign money is at the core of a well-functioning financial system, macroeconomic stabilization policies, and economic growth. My administration places the highest urgency on research and development efforts into the potential design and deployment options of a United States CBDC. Okay. Double I, my administration sees merit in showcasing United States leadership and participation in international fora related to CBDCs and in multi-country conversations and pilot projects involving CBDCs. Triple I, a United States CBDC may have the potential to support efficient and low-cost transactions, particularly for cross-border funds transfers and payments, and to foster greater access to the financial system with fewer of the risks posed by private sector administered digital assets. Within 180 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, the Director of National Intelligence, and the heads of all the relevant agencies shall submit to the President a report on the future of money and payment systems, including the conditions that drive broad options of digital assets. Okay? I'm going to end up there because it's quite lengthy. In other words, 2 years ago, by March 14, the President of the United States signed an order, Executive Order 14067, which allows the United States to create a central bank digital currency. The reason that I quoted is coming from the Federal Register of the United States. These are public documents. I don't know why people don't use them, but I search for them. In other words, under the premises of having a digital system where we have a central bank again, with digital currency that puts the dollar, the paper dollar, the coin money in jeopardy, because once this system is up and running, the US currency will come to zero value. paper money, coin money will be of zero values. That's why, if you notice, during the pandemic, there was such a shortage of coins and some money. Whatever has happened through the pandemic till now, this is what is creating this order 14067 is creating a platform for a central bank digital currency. You have to establish the central bank. The digital currency is coming. If it's not in here yet, but then it's gonna try to roll out according to the procedures to minimize cost of transactions and all the things that could be beneficial. It's okay. But after 180 days in March 2022, last year in February 2022, the banks of the United States and the Fed, the Federal Reserve of the United States, already had in motion, before this executive order was signed by the president, the CBDCs were already started being developed. They have created what is called the Fed Now. Okay, the Fed Now is actually a government program that already is in place. The Fed Now provides real-time transactions in such a speed. Okay, I cannot tell all these nitty-gritty about banking. I'm not a banking expert, but they're using a lot of high-tech data to trace every single transaction in real time. Monies, deposits, transfers, payments, refunds. We're talking about from federal tax refunds to banking transactions, and everything is going to be centralized. Not just that the dollar that we know will go away, fade away, and no longer be acceptable. Coins will be not acceptable. But right now, the Fed Now is in place. If you do a Google search, you can go to Fed Now. The Fed Now website is up and running. And if you tap on the associates of this Fed Now program, there are hundreds of United States banks from all over the different states already under the Fed Now. Employees, federal employees, other employees of banking systems are receiving monetary transactions in real time. That sounds convenient. Oh, it does. It does sounds good in the beginning. But once you put the money, the real paper money and the coin money out, and you no longer accept them for monetary transactions, your money is worthless. So you are in danger of losing your freedom, your privacy. Every single money will be traced. And if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I put out in this channel the government of the United States, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the president already signed the reinstatement of the FISA Act, FISA, okay, Foreign Investigation Surveillance Act, I think it is, and also the Bank Secrecy Act. The FISA tracks every single communication from any country, from any device, to any people. Everything is traced. It's supposed to be intended for foreign nationals that are doing business transactions to fund terrorism or other espionage activities, but it's been used against American civilians. And we have proof that over 200,000 cases were reported to the United States Congress. The Bank Secrecy Act searches to label and record every penny, every single dollar that you have ever bought, where you buy it, how you buy it, how much you buy it, with what frequency you go to different places, what you buy. So basically, when you give the government power to surveil your communications, power to surveil where you spend your money to, and if this you put it together with the Pandemic Act, you're giving all this power of surveillance, because remember, they're going to try to track every person who is sick, every person who is not sick. They try to do the green passes for the pandemic. They try to do the ID 2020, that every citizen in the world should have a standard identification form. Okay, that this is all 196 countries are participating in this ID 2020 project. Plus the DMVs from the United States are participating in it. Interpol is in it. FBI is in it. NSA, FBI are all in it, because they're under this act that instead of working for us, it seeks power. And when they seek power, dangerous things happen. We are in for dark days. We are entering into very uncharted waters, and these are really, really dark days. The Bible in Daniel chapter 9 says that the prince that shall come, that's not Jesus Christ, our Messiah, the prince that shall come will sign a covenant with many. It will start in Israel and will spread like wildfire. All the nations will be signing an accord. There are the Abraham Accords. There's other accords that are happening, but none of them are of strength to make the nations surrender the national powers onto one organization. Should the World Health Organization have all these 194 out of 196 countries sign this pact, and if a pandemic is declared, all these nations must surrender their sovereign powers to the Secretary General. He will make this man more powerful than NATO, more powerful than the Russian Federation, than the Communist China, or the United States of America. Much more powerful. He will have the resources of unprecedented money power, military power, financial, fiscal, and authority over civilian and military organizations owned by the state, or owned by the country, or any federal organization of the countries they are from. So we are in uncharted waters. The Bible says that there will rise one man that in the midst of crises like this World War III, that I believe already started, but it's not yet titled just like that, World War III. We have all these wars going on. We have these systems, economical systems falling in place. Many European, Asian, African, and American countries are starting their central banks digital currencies. There are two blocks formed: the euro and the United States combined. You have the new BRICS in Asia and Africa trying to compete with the status quo system. But after all, this man that will come will look that he can bring peace and reconciliation between the nations, that he can bring peace and end the wars, the financial issues, even the religious woes that plague the nations. This man, the Bible calls him the man of sin, the son of perdition, the man of fierce countenance. It calls him the prince that shall come. But the Bible names him by one name, Antichrist. Have we seen the platforms being set up that for Antichrist to rise from? He will be preceded by another powerful man that has power to reconcile the masses in a religious level. If you surrender the people their religions and you surrender the monies and their food, everybody falls in place, they may think. But us as watchmen, we're watching the world events. There are dark clouds coming ahead. It's not going to get any better. And all I tell the people, come to Jesus Christ now. Come to Jesus Christ now. This is just the beginning. When the world banks come to full power and the WHO gets full control of the sovereign assets of the nations in times of crisis, you will see, because the Lord says, when you see the abomination that causes desolation standing in the holy place, whoso readeth, use discernment, know that our time is at hand. Jesus Christ is coming soon. The White House and the World Health Organization, they're doing a very, very bad deal. And it's time to expose the evils of this world and to bring them to Christ. It is time to seek the Lord now, people. It is time.